Today, we become legends.
Active items are one of my favourite features in Smite 2. They take a bit of playing with them to get used to, but once you remember to use them and start figuring out their use cases and combos, they add an extra layer of depth and playmaking that's really exciting to me. Starter items are also a system I really like. These items are sort of like unique legendary items that are generally allowed to be more powerful than a standard tier 3 because you can only ever have one of them and you can only buy the full version at level 20. So what if we combined these two awesome systems? Well, that's the thesis for this video. I went with only the upgrades having active effects and the regular tier 1 starters for these just having passives, as that seemed more sensible, but you could even design the tier 1s to have some sort of small active effect as well if you wanted to go crazy. Alright, first up we have the mid-lane active starter, the Tyrant's Crown. The tier 1 for this is Shattered Crown and just comes with 20 intelligence, 10% lifesteal, and your basic ability cooldowns are increased by 10%, but your abilities deal 20 additional true damage to all targets. The upgraded Tyrant's Crown grants 100 intelligence, 10% penetration, and 20% lifesteal. The passive is just an upgraded version of the tier 1. Your basic ability cooldowns are increased by 20% this time, but you gain 30% increased intelligence. And the active effect, your next ultimate cast deals double damage but has double the cooldown, with a cooldown of 240 seconds. So this one is pretty simple but powerful in my view. It's a pretty big playstyle shift towards that true nuker playstyle where you'll be hitting way harder than a mid laner without this starter, but will be out of commission for way longer afterwards. It sort of has a little bit of a sacrificial shroud vibe from Smite 1 in that you do more damage but with a trade-off, and the active effect could absolutely make some mid-lane ultimates like Vulcan or Kukulkan into true one-shots on squishy targets. However, if you miss or don't quite kill the target, not only is the active effect on cooldown for 4 minutes, your ultimate is also on cooldown for a very long time. It's a risky all-or-nothing play that could win a fight on the spot or cause you to go without an ultimate for several minutes. The passive also leans into this, but to a lesser extent, as it increases your basic cooldowns but also gives you a % increase to all intelligence gained, which, as we've seen from recently with Sol's Aspect, it can be a very powerful effect. It's probably worth noting here that I didn't think all too much about balance with these designs. I didn't just make them absurdly OP or weak for no reason and did consider balance a little bit, but this video is more about the design, not the exact numbers on these items. Alright, but moving on though, we have the jungle active starter Gjallarhorn. The tier 1 here is Broken Horn, 10 strength or 20 intelligence, whichever is higher, and 10 cooldown rate. The passive has the standard jungle effect of true damage on basic attacks and abilities deal plus 50% damage to jungle monsters, but you deal minus 25% to lane minions. And the actual passive for this, every 30 seconds you ping a random enemy that is in the jungle on the minimap but do not gain vision of them, basically equivalent to Eyes of the Jungle but for one target. And for the upgrade Gjallarhorn, you gain 30 strength or 60 intelligence, whichever is higher, 20 cooldown rate, and 5% movement speed. The passive has the usual jungle stuff, as well as you deal 15% increased damage to enemy gods that have not taken damage from another allied god in the last 5 seconds. The active effect, you gain vision of the lowest health enemy god for 10 seconds and movement speed when moving towards them. Killing the identified god shields you for 20% of their maximum health and reduces your active cooldowns by 2 seconds with a cooldown of 3 minutes. So this is one of my favorites as it leads the jungle into more of a true assassin playstyle through the passive that incentivizes you to find enemy gods that are out of position or otherwise not being attacked by your team. The active is pretty crazy and has a bit of a Kali mixed with Thanatos vibe, as you can basically select a target and aim to take them down at all costs, being rewarded with a shield and cooldown refresh if you manage to get it done. Just the vision effect alone is very powerful, which is why the reward for killing them isn't super high and the cooldown is quite long. If it was still too powerful though, you could let the marked enemy know that they are seen and so they could alert their team to collapse on the assassin or something like that. Alright, next up though we have the solo lane with Infused Sigil. The tier 1 warding Sigil just has 10 physical protection, 10 magical protection, 50 health, and a passive that reduces all damage you take from all sources by 5. The upgrade Infused Sigil comes with 35 of each protections, 150 health, a passive that if you have more than 300 item protections, you gain 2% damage mitigation for every 50 item protections you have, and the active unleashes the spirit of the Sigil, tethering all enemies within 10 meters to you for 10 seconds. Tethered enemies take magical damage every 0.5 seconds, equivalent to 10% of your item protections, and you heal for the damage dealt. Moving more than 15 meters away will break the tether, and the cooldown is 150 seconds. So this is definitely taking a lot of inspiration from Infused Sigil in Smite 1 and Sigil in general, as I felt we needed a more true tank starter item for solo laners in Smite 2. Axe and Bluestone are very damage focused, so Sigil comes with only defensive stats and a damage mitigation passive similar to Smite 1, but based on your item protections to incentivize building full tank with this starter. The active effect itself also scales off protections, with it tethering you to nearby enemies and stealing their life every half second based on your item protections. With a full tank build and the mitigation from the passive, you should in theory be able to stay in the backline longer than a more damage heavy solo laner could, and get a ton of value from the damage and sustain provided by Sigil. But moving on, let's take a look at Pandora's box, the support active starter. So the tier 1 locked box just comes with 10 of each protections and 10 cooldown rate. The passive, as standard support stuff, getting the assist on a lane minion provides bonus gold, health and mana restoration, as well as a key fragment. Upon reaching 100 key fragments, you can unlock Pandora's box, which is basically getting the upgrade for free. Pandora's box, the upgrade is 40 of each protections, 20 cooldown rate, you gain 1 bonus gold per second as with other support starters, and allies within 10 meters redirect 10% of received damage to you. For every 100 damage redirected this way, you store a charge inside the box. The active effect unleashes stored charges to deal 50 true damage per charge to the nearest jungle boss or enemy structure within 5 meters with a cooldown of 1 second, because this basically doesn't need a cooldown, it's just based on charges. So this is really just me trying to relive the glory days of old Smite 1, where support with Hand of the Gods was often the premier objective securer for the team. Pandora's box takes a slightly different approach with a damage redirection effect akin to Compassion from Smite 1, and the item will store charges based on how much damage is redirected using the passive. The active opens Pandora's box and unleashes stored charges to deal true damage to the nearest jungle boss or structure based on how many charges you had. So in theory, you could hold this effect for like 15 minutes and maybe one-shot a Phoenix with backdoor protections removed, or you could hold it for less time but still build up enough charge to out-secure the enemy mage on a fire giant push. This does share a bit of design space with Sunder, but if you wait enough time, it can easily outclass Sunder as an objective secure, and can also be used for burst damage on structures akin to a pyro bomb if you want to use it that way. There's also that interesting trade-off of when you want to unleash the box. You could use it for 600 true damage to secure a Gold Fury, but then you might not have it charged up enough to secure Fire Giant later on. I also went a little crazy with the tier 1 version here, allowing it to upgrade for free upon receiving 100 key fragments from minion assists. As always, this number could be higher or lower depending on balance, but I thought it was an interesting idea and very flavoursome that you work towards unlocking Pandora's box throughout the game, and this could even be applied retroactively to all support starters to help with their economy. Alright, but moving on, let's cover the final active starter for today's video, Azusa Yumi for ADCs. The tier 1 unstringed bow just comes with 15 strength, 10% lifesteal, and a passive that upon killing a lane minion, an evil spirit possesses your weapon, granting you 10% lifesteal for 5 seconds. Killing a god grants 20% for the same duration. The upgrade, Azusa Yumi, grants 45 strength and 25% lifesteal. There's no passive on this one because the active is so crazy, I felt like also giving it a passive might be too ridiculous. But the active creates 2 evil spirits at your side for 10 seconds. During this time, you cannot basic attack, but doing so will cause the spirits to attack for you. They have an increased range and a hit chain of 1x, 1x, 2x, with the final hit being a wider piercing combination attack from both spirits at once. After the duration, or by reactivating Azusa Yumi, the spirits are sent forward, dealing basic attack damage to all enemies in a line, and you return to normal, with a cooldown of 2 minutes. So this is probably the most crazy one, and it might even be hard to visualize what this would look like in a game. Essentially, the 2 spirits appear at your side, almost like a Morrigan charging her 1. You can't basic attack, but each of the 2 spirits fire projectiles instead, a bit like Sunbeam Bow. Their attack chain is also interesting, as they fire as normal for 2 attacks, then combine their power for a wider piercing attack on the 3rd hit that deals double damage. At the end of the duration, or when reactivated, you send the spirits forward in a very long range line and deal a basic attack of damage to all enemies hit before returning to normal. The intent is for the spirits to be fairly far apart, enough so that you can't reliably hit both projectiles on the same target from far range, so it's more of an area of effect buff, not just double damage basic attacks. However, if you are in melee range, you could easily hit both projectiles on the same target, which now that I think about it, that might be kind of broken on some gods like Kali, Bakasura, and Nemesis and the like, but that could be fixed with some kind of range requirement, like doing half damage at point blank up to 1.5 times damage at max range, or enemies hit by both projectiles only take 20% from the second one, something like that. Again, I wasn't really thinking about balance too much here, just trying to make some fun designs. But what do you think of these active starter items? Which was your favorite? Be sure to let me know down below, and even drop your own ideas if you have them, and I'll be sure to give them a read. Catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.